In the headlines, Dominica's newly confirmed community policing consultant to prioritize an effective communication strategy. Caribbean governments continue to push for a vulnerability index as part of a new way to classify economies for development financing. And President Joe Biden pledges to restore ties with America's allies following a turbulent 4 years of the Donald Trump administration. I'm Andrea Louis with the Channel 5 News, back with the details after this.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. We're in this together. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 7 days of unlimited social messaging, 3 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, 700 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $29. Keep your number when you switch to Dominica's most reliable LTE network. Buy wherever you top up. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
Thank you for staying with us. First up, an effective communication strategy is top on the agenda for a newly contracted community policing consultant, Ainsworth Irish. Julian Morris has that story.
Irish, who is no stranger to the skill of policing, was a member of the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force for 40 years, retiring in January 2015. During his stint on the force, former Superintendent Irish had served as coordinator of the National Community Policing Program for 10 years. The position of community policing consultant was held by former Scotland Yard detective David Michael, who held that post last year. Irish says in his position as community policing consultant, one of the top items on the agenda is to create an effective communication strategy for community policing to be more successful.
One of the important things we want to ensure that happens is to have a better communication strategy. And of course, as you know, you have to have that communication strategy to ensure that the police themselves understand the whole network and the new thrust of community policing and social dialogue, because you have to reach out to the communities. You may have a community where there's a problem with drugs or crimes, and then you have to have that dialogue. But one has to be very sensitive. It's not just going and just giving literature or just saying, well, we come to set up a community policing. It's deeper than that. So that social dialogue must be there. That mutual trust has to be one of the platforms to propel the community policing program and concept forward.
Community policing groups have been established in Calibishi, Portsmouth and Mont Prosper. Irish's plan is to reach more communities in Dominica, especially where misconceptions exist about community policing.
In certain communities, there's a little bit of pocket of resistance because persons do not understand the role. And community policing is not about having persons to snitch or give information. It's where you try to work with the police to understand that the police have a role to engage the community in wholesome activities. And very often, the old adage, people tend to believe the police were there just to arrest. The police, the old traditional policing was to investigate and prosecute. But with the advent of community policing since 1980 in the United States, as you'll recall, maybe in the 1980s and so on, there was a lot of crime in Chicago, for instance, in the United States. And one of the methods that was sought was to engage the community more, to get that mutual respect and the understanding. And so that helps.
Educating youth and school children on the role they play in community policing is also on the cards.
Recently we heard about the problems with the schools, where school children after school hours run into brawls and stuff, and problems of that nature. And so community policing will extend in that regard to sort of go to the schools and sensitize the public on the need to work together in harmony. Gone are the days when the police feel that, we are just here to prosecute. So we'll have more patrols, more engagement, more community work. The police need to get to the schools and educate the children, get into programs and resources to utilize to ensure that they get involved in wholesome activity. So these are some of the things we'll be looking at in my capacity of consultant.
The contract of community policing consultant runs for 1 year.
In more top stories, a foundation formed to assist vulnerable people out of vulnerable spaces is gaining traction in Dominica. The Phenomenal Women Foundation was formed last year following the Phenomenal Caribbean Women Symposium. CEO of VF Inc., Dr. Valda Henry, who organizes the symposium, says the foundation also aims to support the vulnerable in various ways.
The support includes mentorship, job placements, training, financial assistance, whatever support they need. And so what we've done, in fact, we've already started to some extent, because one of the speakers last year, again moved by the story, made the first financial contribution to the foundation, which was to assist the specific individual who had the story. And so we've been able to provide for her, for the foundation, tablets for children because they needed it, and other little assistance.
An appeal is also being made to the public to help with a larger feeding program, which targets a wider range of at-risk individuals.
You know, Father Branca John had established the Feeding Jesus program during the COVID lockdown. Every Thursday, we take on the responsibility for providing breakfast every Thursday to the persons, the vulnerable persons. We've also gotten some of the private sector persons to come on board with that. And we actually sent out a little appeal, to persons to say, contribute just $10 a month. And if all of us were able to contribute $10 a month to the bigger cause, then Father Branca and the team will be able to do so much more.
There is another major social issue which the foundation hopes to tackle this year.
In terms of addressing things like domestic violence, child abuse, because these are big issues in Dominica. A few years ago, the judge, in his closing of the assizes, he kind of gave us a good, reprimand as a society in terms of how we kind of neglect and abuse our children, and we kind of cast blind eyes even when we know it's happening. The level of domestic violence is crazy, and I don't know if the studies have been done here, but studies done worldwide has shown, because of the COVID-19 lockdowns, an increase in violence and abuse of children. And so these are going to be two of our main issues that we will be addressing in 2021.
In more developments, the Caribbean is insisting on the development of new ways to classify economies for the allocation of development financing. This comes as the region faces multiple challenges, including the coronavirus pandemic. The region wants an index that would measure the vulnerabilities and risks developing countries face instead of the per capita income guide that international financial institutions currently use to determine the allocation of funds. Development assistance agencies have graduated many Caribbean countries to middle income status, driven by the use of the per capita income measurement, which cuts and eventually halts the level of funding those countries can access. Top Caribbean officials continued making the case for the use of a vulnerability and resilience index earlier this month during a conversation the UN Economic Commission on Latin America and the Caribbean hosted on the sidelines of the 12th Ministerial Forum for Development in Latin America and the Caribbean. The theme of the event was Towards a New Classification for Caribbean Economies. Panelists agreed that the per capita income measurement failed to effectively assess the development needs of the Caribbean.
Many middle-income countries continue to face the very great and grave possibility of a systemic debt crisis, with many sovereign and corporate defaults in the 2021-22 financial period, and perhaps even in the medium term. In the totality of these circumstances, it is of great importance that we move expeditiously towards forging a fresh consensus, a global consensus, in respect of the classification of middle-income countries, including small island developing states of the Caribbean. As we bring our various perspectives to the possible modalities of a new classification for Caribbean economies, I wish to just share a few points for consideration. Firstly, we have long maintained our position on revamping the designation and or graduation of states by integrating vulnerability metrics. Put simply, GDP alone does not give a true reflection of development status nor the fragility of an economy, especially in the Caribbean. During the current pandemic, such calls have taken on an additional urgency, presenting perhaps an opportune time for the international community to revisit and change the development financing landscape for small states, and in particular vulnerable countries such as exist in the Caribbean. That we could now use a metric that is truly fit for purpose. Secondly, broad acceptance in the global financial community is important for this as any other new responding initiative. We very much hope that the participation of relevant agencies and institutions, including the UNDP, in this important dialogue will promote the level of sensitization required to facilitate the creation of a reliable vulnerability index to be used to rank all countries based on a set of agreed parameters.
This is the Channel 5 News. Coming up, the start of a new administration in the United States with the swearing in of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
A new in-home experience is here. All your services bundled into one simple plan. Faster, more reliable Wi-Fi so that you can binge, play, and stream uninterrupted. Unlimited flow local landline minutes mean you can talk and talk and talk. Plus the best in TV entertainment with over 120 channels and 29 in HD, all for $160 a month with the new all-in bundle. With Flow, it only gets better.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. We're in this together. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
Welcome back. The relaunching of an e-magazine to boost Dominica's visibility in the international community is on the cards for the DHTA. Julian Morris explains.
The Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association DHTA launched an e-magazine in March 2020 dubbed Experience Dominica. This magazine put into its digital format the magazine which had existed several years prior to promote Dominica to the global community. According to Executive Vice President of the DHTA, Kevin Francis, the digital magazine was gaining a lot of traction in the tourism industry.
Since its launching, it's been received very well. Yeah, we've been getting a lot of traction, a lot of interest from our business community, from our industry, persons who want to be seen. And the platform itself is it's now in a digital guidebook form as opposed to a magazine, which it has been for the last 12 years, right? So this year we're moving digital with our products, and because of that we've been able to get a flexibility that we didn't necessarily have with printing, so that we can now change it more frequently. You can customize your listings. You can add during the year, remove during the year, and it is a yearly thing.
Francis says Experience Dominica has been useful during the COVID-19 pandemic in promoting certified properties to visitors.
Experience Dominica still remains, very big for us, more in 2021, but we've been able to use it so far as a platform to house our resource for certified accommodation. So if you go on to Experience Dominica under our COVID certified properties, you'll be able to see a list of all certified TSPs, be able to visit their websites, book their services, and all that is done through the facilitation of the DHTA. Moving forward in 2021, we want to continue using Experience Dominica, but we also want to build on our booking line to something greater.
The DHTA EVP says a relaunch of the magazine is in the works to gain more visibility for the country.
As you can imagine, we would not have been able to get as much traction as we would have based on the pandemic this year and how travel has halted. So in order to be fair to our advertisers, the persons who are already taking ads and listings for the year 2020, we will resubmit them for 2021, so there's no additional cost to them. So in doing that, we have to relaunch the product in order to gain that visibility. We want to work with Discover Dominica and the other stakeholders, public sector stakeholders, to launch this. We do believe that it can be the destination app or part of the destination app, similar to how it was our destination magazine.
Dominica's policymakers and top health officials have been challenged to maintain their engagement with all sectors as the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic continues. Director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dominican Dr. Carissa Etienne, was responding to Prime Minister Scarrett's request for her advice on the way forward in the fight against COVID-19.
Remember, I said that this was not just a health crisis, and the management of the health crisis also depends on what other sectors will do. So I do believe that governments should continue to ensure multi-sectoral engagement and to continue meeting with the other sectors and engaging them in planning. Governments need to continue high vigilance and enforcement of public health measures. This is going to be important. I would think that you need to continue the investment in the health sector and also in the social determinants of health, like adequate and safe housing. And my congratulations to the government of Dominica on the housing initiative, but also access to nutrition, water, and sanitation. Very importantly, however, I think all governments at this stage should have already re-established and strengthened essential health services, and particularly at the first level of care, because we are seeing excess mortality from non-communicable diseases, from other diseases that could be managed but had not been managed when we were dealing with in the throes of the pandemic.
The PAHO director says the government must continue to ensure access to testing, vaccines, and personal protective equipment, PPE, for the safety of healthcare workers. And President Joe Biden has pledged to rebuild America's relationship with old alliances severed during the last 4 years of the Trump administration. Joseph Biden was sworn in as America's 46th president on Wednesday. Right alongside him, Kamala Harris made history, sworn in as the first African-American and Asian-American woman to hold the office of Vice President of the United States.
All my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security.
Biden said the nation was facing a number of serious challenges all at the same time, but together they would overcome.
We've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all of those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story.
President Biden says the goal is to make America a leading force for good in the world once again. Unity was the theme of his inaugural address, bearing in mind that there are still significant populations in the United States who continue to believe falsely that Trump won the election.
I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 7 days of unlimited social messaging, 3 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, 700 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $29. Keep your number when you switch to Dominica's most reliable LTE network. Buy wherever you top up. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. We're in this together. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
A new in-home experience is here. All your services bundled into one simple plan. Faster, more reliable Wi-Fi so that you can binge, play, and stream uninterrupted. Unlimited Flow local landline minutes mean you can talk and talk and talk. Plus the best in TV entertainment with over 120 channels and 29 in HD. All for $160 a month with the new all-in bundle. With Flow, it only gets better.
To end the news, the headlines again. Dominica's newly confirmed community policing consultant to prioritize an effective communication strategy. Caribbean governments continue to push for a vulnerability index as part of a new way to classify economies for development financing. And President Joe Biden pledges to restore ties with America's allies following a turbulent 4 years of the Donald Trump administration. Feel free to access our past newscasts on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Andrea Louis, and to all of our viewers around the world, thank you so much for watching. Join us tomorrow.